guy is starting to feel like it's about time to stop work, clean everything up, and start again. You ever get to that point in a long drawn out project where everything is just getting too disgusting? Okay, what I'm doing here, I am treating this kind of like the front timing cover modification you can do on a stove bolt Chevy, where the bolts, the bottom two bolts for the timing cover went through from the oil pan side through the main bearing and into the front cover. And there's an easy modification you can do. You just tap those two holes in the main with a 3/8 tap and drill out the bottom two holes on the timing cover, and away you go. I am doing that same thing here. The only difference is our rear main is, it's much thinner. We have about a 1/4 inch material there, but it's going to work just fine. So I have drilled out our bottom two holes on our rear main. Our seal that we got with the kit presses into this flange. So this is a reused flange. So we just drilled that out. We tapped those with 3/8. Going to use 3/8 by 3/4 with a lock nut on them, and that'll work really well. I have put Permatex on everything, as you can see. So that'll go there. And little holes like that. I put assembly lube on our crankshaft here, so we're not just installing it dry. And the rest you get from the outside anyway. Forgot, I want Permatex on these threads. You can see it might be to your benefit to get some socket head screws, machine screws for this. Not a big deal, a little work with a wrench. It'll be just fine. Well, I think I'm basically ready, so we're going to hop on that old struggle bus and see if we can get this back on there. Yep, that's what we're going to do, all right. Okay, this part is a do-over. My first go-around this time, I bought the wrong parts, the wrong clutch disc. But yesterday's tractor, Parts ASAP, seems like there's another name in there. Allstate's tractor? They all seem to be related. I don't know if by marriage or how, but I just can't wrap my head around all of that and all their names. But either way, I think yesterday's tractor was the website that I got these parts from, and very accommodating folks. But there was way too much offset in the other clutch disc, and so I'm sure it's for one of the Perkins models. So what I'm going to do, since I don't have the correct alignment tool, I'm using this Chevy one here, first of all, to hold it centered with the pilot. I'm going to get this all going here. Can't be spending too much time on this again today. I've got our middle child has graduated 8th grade, and so we got a party to throw for the noon meal. So I kind of got to get out of here, but if I can get this engine hanging on the transmission, I'll be happy. All right. Okay, I'm going to do my best to line the inner spline up with the outer spline. That's looking pretty good. Start snugging it down here. To help things along on this end, I have, of course, lined up 2 of my splines here, and then I took 4 Chevy cylinder head bolts, cut off the heads, and I'm going to use those as guide pins to hopefully guide this thing on somewhat centered. So here's where we're at. I was going to run it. I thought it'd be kind of fun to leave it hanging out here on its own, you know. Little counter, what's the term? Anyway, it'd be kind of cool, but I had the other tractor from the other shop here, and I seized the opportunity and hauled the front end in to the shop. Got it hanging by the cherry picker, but I don't want to leave it here because this cherry picker is not trustworthy. So, and we're going to be gone for about a week. So I'm just going to get it bolted up, and that'll be the end of it. I have a replacement top hose So I'm going to get that thrown on before I have to struggle with that. Shouldn't be too big of a deal either way. And I know that they replaced this not too long ago. I'm going to torque our head down, and I have a couple issues here and a couple of unknowns. I just do not have the information. Torque sequence, you know, the typical working a spiral from the center out. That's what we'll do. Gonna go, I don't even have torque values. Gonna go up to 70, 75 maybe. Again, just kind of going off stove bolt Chevy information, and that should be close enough. Down here we have a little bit of a problem getting to our bolt heads, so I'm, you know, got a crow's foot, and that should do the job. But anyway, I am going to sneak up on these, do it in a couple increments, and see if we can get this tighten down here. Well, the crow's foot was only good up to 60 pounds, and then it spreads open. Too bad I don't have the the offset. Kind of looks like a flare fitting wrench style. That would have grabbed on better, but then you always run into the fact, are you going to run into clearance problems? How you have to orient it, Anyway, that got up to 60. The odd ones I could get with this, and just doing it by feel, judging how tight 70 feels on the ones I got with the socket, and doing that. The intermediate ones, these two, this cast is too low, can't even get that in there, and so I had to resort to wrenches, this kind of thing. And so I just judged, once again, I judged how tight 70 foot-pounds feels up there, and honestly I think these are tighter than those. So, that's probably 75 to 80 down here. So, anyway, I know it's tight, not the way I like to do things, but that is such a suspicious design. Not suspicious, but whatever word I want to use there. I don't know. You make up your own word. Anyway, I'm going to proceed. I'm going to get the rest of the valve train on. We've been through that in the video where we went through this head. I'm going to get the manifolds on the other side and just keep going. Okay, I've got the manifolds on. That's a fight. I couldn't do, I don't think I could design a better one, you know, but it is such a fight. They've got these, uh, they've got these little crossbars like a stove bolt Chevy, well, any Chevy inline, you know, and these ones especially the rear one, that is a bear to get going. And I had to, the studs were all messed up. Everything was seized up, so I'd chase all the threads and do all the things, you know, but we got it on. Took forever. I was about to put the carb on. Thought, no, I better fill it with antifreeze before we go any farther with coolant. So I did a gallon of coolant, a gallon of water, pulled the drain plug. So far, nothing, but we do have a drip. And I'm not just talking about me. And in the interim of pulling this thing apart and putting it back together now, our water pump has decided it would like to leak on us, which is just peachy. Yes, I said it. So, I guess that does it. I don't think I showed, there's how the hydraulic PTO, the pump, runs off the crank down there. All right, guys. Well, I've got it mostly full of water, and then we had a serious drip coming out right from underneath. You know, the seals are out basically from underneath the pulley there. So went back to the internet, and if I had just purely been going off the internet and bought a water pump for what they said was for a Continental, it would have been wrong, basically. So I don't know. I don't know why it is the way it is. The parts, evidently there's a disconnect somewhere. But anyway, this funky looking thing is the correct one. So I have got to get quite a few bolts out here, hoses, re-drain what I filled. I guess I better throw some paint on this first. I'll see you eventually. So to get the water pump off, you basically have to take 3 bolts. Well, okay, 2 of the 3 bolts that hold this intermediate plate onto the front of the block. This is the coolant passage on the front of the block there, and then your water pump is on this side. It all seems a little bit convoluted and overcomplicated kind of thing, but you know, I suppose it worked. So that goes on there, and then that goes on the block. Anyway, I did not have I don't have another gasket, so I had to manufacture one real quick for between this thing and the block. So I will Permatex that up because I'm sure it's not perfect, but it should function just fine. Get that on, get the pump on, get the fan, get the belt and the fan, that'd be easier. And then I'm going to try filling it back up with water, and I'm going to stop. If the radiator fills with water without any obvious leaks, I'm going to stop. This wet sleeve system, trusting the head gasket is going to seal the top of the sleeves to the top of the deck, you know. I don't like it. But anyway, I suppose it worked when new, so it should work again. I want to make sure the sleeves are just fine, so I'm going to leave it, come back, make sure we have no drips long term, and then we will finish it up. Well, I had just got it up to the very tippy top of the filler neck when we discovered another water leak. And it was coming out of the radiator where they solder basically right here. So the very last few inches of the radiator was leaking. So we got this thing, eBay special. Actually, I think it comes from the same place. Yesterday's Tractor, Parts, ASAP, whatever, and they were selling it on eBay. So, free shipping and all that nonsense. Looks like the same thing. So I guess now I spend an hour putting this in. Crazy Carl's Radiators, Black Hole Avenue, South Calcutta. Oh, right next to the gift shop. Now I know where they pulled this thing out of. Here we can spot the crux of the issue. It is very possible that I could actually use a radiator just about this size for a future project. I would probably want to center the filler neck for said project. Be nice if both of these were centered actually, but I would feel better throwing a new one in the tractor for this guy, and we'll see if we can play around and use this later. Right now I am going to start scraping because we have some crud. Ow! Right in there. So I'm completely disillusioned and surprised. I'm flabbergasted. Ramesh did me a ugly turn here. So our first two bolts on top, they just went in. The second, they were slightly difficult, but we got them to go to start. The bottoms, yeah, there was no chance. The help of the die grinder was how we got them in. And then the top tank the whole thing is too low in comparison to the bolts. And so our shroud, the bend here on our shroud was too high. It would not let the radiator go down, or we couldn't get the shroud in there. So I unfortunately had to slice on the edges and bend that down slightly. So if ever this is worked on again and pulled back out, everything can be redone or whatever. I have a terrible feeling premonition that it's going to be me, if that ever happens. But anyway, it is in, so I am going to finish this up. Thanks a lot, Ramesh. It's getting a little spicy in here, a little steamy. I have gone through and I have set the valve lash. Now on these flat tappet lifters, they usually give you a value for hot, and that's it. And so just add 2 or 3 thousandths when you're adjusting the lifters at the rocker arm there, and then when she's hot, you can recheck them. But that should help you out with the expansion. I've got my little motorcycle IV, and I'm sloshing gas everywhere. Might as well get the lid for that. Throttle is not hooked up. Choke is not hooked up. I've got timing hopefully close. It was kind of really finicky trying to get the rotor lined up with my number 1 and having the points open. Probably because the throttle's not hooked up. I think the governor ran away with itself there. But hey, 1 year and she fires up. Oh man, okay, we got to think about break-in. And what am I leaking? Oh, hydraulic fluid because of the pump. Yeah, I'll finish hooking the carburetor up. Obviously get my hydraulic lines reconnected, governor, and then we will do a break-in on this, on the cylinders. Cam doesn't need it. By the way, I did just come across torque tensions in the book, and everything is pretty much right in line with what I did based on Stowbolt Chevy. 70 on the head bolts, 40 on the rods. Main bearings says 85 to 95. I probably did 100. So peace of mind, I guess. Okay, so with the cylinders and piston kits, I got this recommended break-in procedure here. Obviously, camshaft is not really an issue. That's reused, so we don't need to worry about that. But certainly for breaking the rings in, we want to do this. I really have no way of providing load on this thing. other than driving it around. So whether I want to do that for 10 minutes, I mean, I don't know how I judge 50% load versus 100% load. I have no idea, is what I'm saying. I'm not a tractor mechanic by any means. But anyway, we're going to do a clumsy attempt at a break-in procedure. I know old school in a car, you just take it out and you drive it at different speeds. You floor it several times kind of thing, you know, and get everything to seat in. So I guess we'll kind of do that. Anyway, while it's running, I'm going to be checking, making sure we're getting oil, which it looks like we are, to all our rockers. We already have oil pressure. I know that. It pumps up just cranking the thing. Coolant, so on and so forth. Adjusting the throttle, I know that needs some work. But yeah, I'm going to be running it here a while and see if we can finish this thing up. Now I misplaced my feeler gauge again. Okay, anyway, when I find that, now that we're nice and hot, well, what a load of hooey. Where are you? I just had you. I don't know. Anyway, now that it's nice and hot, assuming I can find it before it cools off, I'm going to go through and readjust or check our valve clearances again and make sure we're on the money, 16 and 18 thousandths respectively. I gotta find it. Well, everything seemed to be oiling. We didn't have any leaks, except I did not have the radiator cap on tight and it was burping over out of the hose onto the ground. So that's a non-issue as far as I'm concerned. Our homemade little rocker cup thingy seemed to be holding in there and just fine like all the others. So anyway, I've gone through, I've readjusted, make sure everything's fine. That initial adjustment, like I said, any procedure you typically are going to find and adjustments for these things on solid tappets is a hot value. So where do you start? You do it a couple thousandths over that, assuming there's going to be expansion, and get tighter. And then go through, and that's just for startup. You know, if they're too loose, you're not necessarily going to be able to start the engine, or it's not going to run too well. I've had it before where valve adjustment prevented the engine from starting. It makes sense. So you want it close, but you don't want it too much. You obviously don't want to bend anything. So I always start 2 or 3 thousandths over that hot value. And then when it is hot, when you've run it like this for the first time, go ahead and recheck them, tighten them down if they need tightened down, narrow the gap, and you're good to go. I think I can throw the valve cover on and seal that up tight. I made a big mess with oil all over the place. Not a big deal. It's just how it goes. So we'll get that buttoned up. I want to check the timing, but I guess my light is at the other shop, so I'm going to have to do that later. So I'm going to get this kind of cleaned up, get the gas thing out of here, and then we will start putting sheet metal back on. All right, I think I'm going to pause with the sheet metal temporarily and get some fresh petrol in here. I want to see if the fuel gauge works. I know the gauge works, but I don't know if the sending unit works. I don't remember anymore. And if it doesn't, I've got to call the guy and see if that's worth, well, you're doing a great job here, fella. If that's worth pausing the project over, or if he cares, You might as well take care of it while the hood's off, right? Okay. I put my tester on the wire and the gauge swept through. And when I turn the key on, it does bump up just a little bit, but I don't know. Hey, it's moving now. Are you gonna float? Or are you just gonna... What are you trying to say here, fella? I think it might work. So I'll put the hood on. What was that? Bungee cord, I think. Wonder where it went. Sounding good. We have oil pressure, we have cooling, we have gauges in general. This, I guess, is going to end this video and this project like it started. I'm going to roll it out of here and put the bucket back on, and that'll be it. Then we need to discuss taking it home. Exciting stuff. Now I do need to pull, the first job for this thing before I put the bucket on is I've got to pull a Rally Sport forward out of the way, because I was very smart and I put that kind of right in the way of the bucket. So we will chain onto that and put this tractor to work right out of the gate here. So I'm going to do that. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it, especially on these projects that probably aren't as popular. But I really appreciate you joining me, guys. God bless you. We will see you on the next one.